no more things I used to do. I don't do no more, for the Lord's made a change in me.
Hello, I am Melissa. This is Real History with Melissa, and today is the 23rd of April, 2026. And finally, yay, I'm here with Darick and Ula Chamberlin, and we are talking about the cutting through volumes that we've been, telling you we're on the way for a while now. So, hi.
Hello,
Melissa.
how are you?
I'm great. I'm good. Today was a big day. I took the trip to Dallas and I got the books. So,
Exciting.
and
Very excited.
I have pictures to show you. I documented the trip.
Very good, very
Excellent.
good. That's all about.
I didn't stop at Buc-ee's. I did.
What's Bucky's?
Oh, they don't have Buc-ee's on the West Coast. Oh, it's a
Um,
big deal from I'm not sure where they start, but all the way from, here for sure down to Florida. It's a big, huge road stop where you get gas and buy
Oh yeah.
popcorn. Yeah, but I didn't
okay.
do that.
And they
So,
specialize in popcorn?
oh no, they specialize in everything. Beef
Oh, okay.
jerky, barbecue, you name it.
Okay.
T-shirts, all the stuff you don't
But
need.
there's a one that has like the truck stop where they have the showers and the whole thing for the.
We're not here for Bucky's. I don't know what
Well,
they
no, I'm just
have.
those are pretty intensive.
So I wanted to say before we get talking about it that this is going to be a visual intense real history. We are talking about the cutting through volumes that Ula and Darick have been working on for a while now. And we're going to show it to you and talk about it and talk about the process and look at pictures. And I've got my document camera set up. So you might find yourself frustrated if you're only listening to the episode as a podcast. So I would encourage you to go to one of the video channels. You can find them at cuttingthroughthematrix.com. They're all listed, so you'll be able to find it on X and YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, and Substack. And all of those addresses are right there on the main page. So please do that because this is, for me, a monumental day that we have arrived at.
For us too.
Excellent.
It's been a
Yeah,
long time coming.
it
Yes.
it has been. Yeah. So I was kind of thinking about as like how tired I've been and so many it seems like oh I'm just running but as I was gathering the elements to talk to you like piles of books and drafts that we went through and looking through the emails and going oh don't forget to talk about this and pictures that you sent of cover ideas I realized that we have been now and the two of you have been at this intensely for quite a while now. And then I've been in it with you since probably late October, early November with the proofreading and
Yeah.
finalizing. When did we really settle on
Um,
the start on the covers? That was that November, December that we were.
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it was
think
before. It was
so.
before the holidays,
Well,
but there
it
was
might
a
have been earlier because didn't we think that the book was gonna be published by December?
We did, but we still were we did think it was going to be published by December.
Okay.
But I think we were still back and
Behind.
forth on the cover,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
and then all of a sudden the inspiration hit. So,
yeah.
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
good.
The time slows down the closer to the gravity well of the thing you get,
Yeah.
it's all those parts coming together.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know how the two of you are feeling right now, but I was looking at all of this work thinking, well, no wonder. Now, I suppose since you have a business that you run, which entails that you get up at the crack of dawn in shifts, and you have
True.
three children under the age of 8,
Hmm.
that I'm thinking that maybe this kind of pressure and constant movement is nothing for you. But for
Mm.
me,
No.
No, it was added to those things. So no, it was,
Relief in some sense too, because at least we got to make art, which we don't have that much time for now these days because we're so busy. So we knew we had to do this, we wanted to do this, and we had to do it. So therefore we did it, so we were making art this whole time, which was great.
And the
That's
nature of all those pulling all those things together, and that the slow process, no matter what, even of a standard book, the process would be slow and methodical because of the multi pages and all the different sourcing of all the stuff. But it was like to be able to do those little incremental bits, and it's going in and it's gaining ground, even though you're not to the finish line. That's a different process than either of us usually work in when we're doing art for ourselves.
mhm.
But that was cool. That was a learning experience to really knuckle down with a lot of those elements.
Yeah.
Well, I thought I wanted to ask Ula a question, but I thought I'd keep the visual elements going.
Okay.
And so I'm going to turn on I'll put on glasses, that helps me, and get to the document camera here, and we'll just look at what I'm now calling first edition. So from now on, it will be the Cutting Through Volumes, Cutting Through Books by Alan Watt, first edition and second edition. So we're going to have a peek at the first edition. And just in post-production, I'll tell you right now, those of you who are listening and watching, that in post-production, I may be cutting out some of these long pauses while I scramble around on the desktop looking for document cameras. But here we go. Do we see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So that gives you an idea. I'll give you a little scale here that what you're looking at is 8.5 by 11. You can see, I'll give you a different perspective of it here. So that is the book. This is what it looks like. This is what Alan Watt made really on his kitchen floor. And he did it at the kitchen table with a typewriter. And you can tell when you're looking at it that he was using different technology. Here's a typewriter. Here's some things he did on a computer and printed out. There's some cut and paste. I don't know how easily we can see cut and paste, but that would be an example of something that he literally cut out and either glued or taped onto his master. So this first edition, you can see the first volume is The Androgynous Hermaphroditic Agenda, and it was done in 1999. And I'll see how quickly I can get over to the second volume, which he created also in 1999, called A Glimpse into the Great Work. And these volumes were always available individually and as a set that you can see ring bound. And I still keep them available that way. So the third volume is entitled Esoteric Unveiled and the Meaning of Revelations in the High Masonic Tradition, and that he did in 2003. So this gives you a sense of what it looks like. I'll just show you a few other things because this will help you understand. This will be an important page here that will come up later in the discussion. So here Alan has an image of a rose. He rose again. And there's the rose. He rose again, reincarnation. There's a carnation flower there. And you've got different symbols of a spire, a church spire, and a cross. And you've got crossbreeding, cross-dresser across the sky. So he right away, I mean, because we've only started, here again, here's the first volume. From queer to maternity. And then the image that we were just looking at is here on what is Alan's second page. So you can see the images and you can tell that Alan has taken these and photocopied them and then cut them out and glued them on, taped them on the page that he was working on. So as I've gone through the process, I'll take us off the document camera. what I realized in doing this, because I was so into the process with Darick and Ula at a certain point, because they were on their own for a long time, and then when it was time to bring me in, I just had so much enthusiasm because what they did was just stunning. It was so beautiful. But I had also realized in going through the process of proofreading it with, friends, and I'll talk about that in a bit, but going through the process, I realized the kind of deep attachment that I would always have for the first edition because it's guerrilla style. It's dangerous. There was a point when he was doing the Waiting for the Miracle, what became Waiting for the Miracle conversations with Jackie Petru on her show Sweet Liberty. And she said to him, Alan, you have to write a book. And he said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not interested in doing that. A book on general history? And she said, no, not general history, meaning your average history book, but the kinds of things that we've been talking about, the esoteric and, symbolism and language construction. And he said, well, if I did something like that, it would have to be for really a limited audience, for people who had already started a journey of exploring and thinking outside the box. Because he said, I wouldn't even be interested in writing something for a general readership. So that was in 1998 when she suggested it, and sure enough, by 1999 he put himself to it. So they're wonderful. There's nothing like these books. And there will be nothing like the second edition either. It's beautiful and unique and very, in its way, very, very, very true, faithfully true to what Alan did. But I wanted to start, Ula, by asking you, because you approached me in 2022 and said, what do you think about redoing the Cutting Through volumes? And maybe just doing better images, and making them look better and giving. So I said, I love it. I love that idea. But what gave you the idea? How did that come to you?
Well, I've listened to Alan's talks for so long, basically since like 2009, and just hundreds of hours while painting. And I learned so much from him, and I was just really grateful, really, and I wanted to just give something back. And I thought being an artist and knowing the value of aesthetics, I guess, of how people appreciate things that are beautiful, or how they maybe perceive things differently, or they're more willing to pick something up and look at it if it is beautiful to look at. I just thought, well, why not do that with his book? Why not source new images that are higher quality? And Darick has all this design experience um, as well. I just thought we had the skills to do a good job.
And
So
even back then, quite literally, the copy that she had of the original edition
Mhm.
was already so read and reread and
yeah.
poured over that it was all dog-eared and everything, even then. So it was
Hey,
like, it was like a logical thing of like, oh, if this was more durable to pick up,
Yeah.
so
can you
that,
show us right now? Can you show us your
My
copy?
copy?
yeah, it's an even more
I can.
weathered.
Here it is.
Yeah, it's a little,
It's all has fallen apart,
yeah,
but
I just love
it's
that.
love.
yeah, it hasn't, yeah.
Um, yeah, so just out of gratefulness, I just wanted to do something. And I used to translate his talks into Polish too. So um it's not the first time I wanted to give my time for something that I thought was valuable.
You know what? You just gave me the idea. I want to go over and have a peek and show people that because a lot of people maybe I don't talk about the website as much as I should, but I would like people to see. I had some problems. The EU was done. Basically, I got some censorship from EU, and I had to take Alan Watts Sentient Sentinel that used to be Alan Watts Sentient Sentinel .eu, and I had to turn it into a com site. But I kept uploading it. The whole year that it was down, I uploaded to it. So it was okay. It just couldn't be seen.
Yeah.
And so then I transferred it over. And I just want to show people really quickly here how they can look at the transcripts that you did. So this is Alan Watt, sentientsentinel.com, and you can see it's pretty neat here, but you can see that it's got
There's the Polish.
Yeah, there's a
yeah,
lot.
yeah. So you've got Dutch, German, Hungarian, Spanish, French, Polish, English, Scandinavian, Portuguese, Finnish, Romanian, Serbian, Bulgarian, Danish, Russian, Estonian, Swahili, and Slovenian. And I heard from someone, this is something I haven't been able to actively keep up with, but I heard from somebody just the other day who's going to start translating into a new language. And if I could remember what new language that was right now, I'd tell you, but I forgot.
You got some room there on the navigation, so that's
Yes, yeah. So here is the Polish, and all of this Ula did as well. So basically introduced the fact that, and we've got a new transcript there, but there are others as well.
Yeah, at the beginning, I remember I was
there,
writing
there,
them
there we
down.
go. Yeah,
There
I
we
just
go, yeah.
I forgot how to navigate it, but
Wow.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Look
See,
at
I
all
forgot
those.
how many
Yeah.
I've done. But wasn't there one more person who was doing them in Polish?
I think there was one more person, but they only did one or two.
Oh, really? Because
Yeah.
okay, I sort of remember it was a man, and I was quite impressed with his translation skills. And I
Well,
looked at his transcripts. I'm like, and I learned a lot.
okay. I'm not sure. I think he only did a couple of them. And it may be that was one he did, and I'm not sure, but as I recall, you did the bulk of them.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because I remember I used to first I started I was typing them, and then I started recording myself over Alan in Polish, and I'd post those on Polish websites where just Polish people could find them.
I remember when you told Alan that you were going to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So that's cool. Yeah.
yeah.
But anyway, so you've been at this for a while, and I also just have to say, I'm going to say this right off the bat, but I just love you two.
Well, thank you,
Oh,
Melissa.
very
You
nice.
have,
Loves you.
and it's also, Darick offered to do so much for Alan, and that Alan just didn't have time to focus on. We didn't have time to focus on, but Darick had wonderful ideas for redesigning the website, which would have been wonderful, but the
Gets in the trail
time.
anyway. Yeah. But
So,
that's really fascinating too, because that's before we knew each other. She
Yeah.
was already like when we met after we started talking and discussing things that we had in common, we stumbled onto that we both knew who he was, everything. That was really interesting
Yeah.
because it
There's
was,
not that many people,
Yeah. Yeah.
truthers knew about Alan even,
yeah. Yeah. That to me, that is amazing because,
yeah.
Darick had come to Alan and said, let me help with the website. Here's some ideas. And you were doing the Polish translations and communicating
Well,
with them.
he came to you earlier though. We didn't know each other then.
No,
Yeah,
that's what I'm
yeah,
saying. That you,
yeah.
The translations
Yeah.
were already together when the translations were happening.
Oh,
But
okay.
still,
All right.
she'd already was
Okay.
well versed in listening
Yeah.
and I don't remember which specific interview or show of his that I heard, but I don't remember which show he was on. It might have been a Visigoth show or something. But he was so lucid in that particular thing. I was struck. I was like, man, I was like really impressed because there's so many. Even at that time, there were already a lot of people talking about things that were like, this is the internet. We can do
Hmm.
desktop publishing. We can do peer-to-peer. We can do, we don't need this officialdom to bottleneck things. It's flowing through the
Hmm.
90s, but his discourse was so gentlemanly and so clear and so without motive other than just saying, you know, think about this stuff, it was really, I was like, this is what people need to this is the vibe, this is the tone. In addition to the material, this is the actual, to my way of thinking, the actual quality of discourse that helps someone find what's going on and to learn things. It's instructive and it's exemplary. It's not browbeating or accusing or bombast, and
Hmm.
that was really, I was like, that's great. And I think that is maintained through all of the things we've read and heard. And so that's I had the same feeling of gratitude of like, that's what we need. It was great. So this is
That's
a
great.
kind of a full
Yeah.
circle. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it is amazing, and I just want to I want to continue for a moment here and just show more of the things that you will do. But I want to let people know. So we're going to take a look at the website again here real quickly because I don't want to take a line from Hillary Clinton, but it takes a village.
True.
It really does. And it always has with Alan. There have always been people that have stepped up and done the translations and done the transcribing. And there have been lots of people who have done, those kinds of things as well. Even the Sentient Sentinel website was designed by a woman in the States, a long time ago. And a gentleman who eventually ended up coming up and living on the land on a trailer did the other site, the cuttingthroughthematrix.com. And these are people, and I think you can tell when you look at it's not professionally done. It doesn't have all the whistles and bells, but there's so much love there, and there are thousands of hours of Alan's
Yeah.
talk. So to me,
Really
the
amazing.
website, yeah, it's just amazing.
It's
But
its own Wayback Machine. There's like
yeah,
so much all the way just loaded and
it is its own Wayback
yeah,
Machine. And
it's
so
the
I want to take a peek at the front page because, again, this was done by Jason. And, I remember somebody unkindly said, it looks like somebody threw, ate a bunch of crayons and threw them up. And it's like,
oh
listen, listen, lady, this is old school and it rocks. This is this rocks. But I wanted
Early
to show,
90s.
H to the T
yeah,
to the N to
yeah.
the L.
So I
Yeah.
want, in the it takes a village here. I want to just show you a couple of things. Andrea did this graphic for me. She made a couple of graphics for the website and helped me out there. And let's see. Okay, so if you click on that, I did this page that makes it click on it, but she created this graphic which shows you that Waiting for the Miracle is available in 4 languages. And that's pretty neat. And the most recent transcription was Graham and Gabrielle who translated it into German. So that shows you that. And then but again, it takes a village is that's another graphic there from Andrea. And so, but this is Graham and Gabrielle. And, years ago, someone that we lost touch with did the transcribing into Portuguese and Spanish. So it's just, this is how it's done. Now, earlier tonight, before we started recording, I said to Darick, okay, between now and Sunday, I need to change the front page. And could you help me come up with a new graphic so that we can feature the second edition right here? And he said, sure. So he's going to help me and he'll also, help me on this part. So when you click on it, he'll create a new little image there. And then the two of us together, we were looking at the source code earlier. And so I was trying to figure out what I'd need to change. So down here, I'll have to change Waiting for the Miracle so that it'll be second edition, cutting through.
Yeah.
So we'll be having a phone call between now and Saturday afternoon and reworking this so that you'll be able to easily see what it is you're getting. Now, one other thing in I got to come up with a better thing. It takes a village. I think the better way of saying it is Love from Listeners, which is a title of one of the flash drives. And so I'll show you that. This again, we're on the front page and we scroll down and we see, look, new. Now, this flash drive project was a big deal. And that was one that Diana helped me organize data, and the hours that I spent also working on organizing data was incredible. And that, if you click on that image, you can see the flash drives. Now, I had this idea. I said to Darick and Ula, I'm working on flash drives and I'm going to package them beautifully in cases. And Darick said, you want some help? And I said, oh, wow, I'd love some help. And so I just had the idea of the images of Alan, and I kind of knew which photos and images I wanted to use. But Darick and Ula, with their design skills, they really, as we like to say, I can't remember which chef it is, but it might be Bobby Flay who flavors everything, but he kicked it up. They kicked it up a notch. Darick and Ula's skills kicked it up a notch. So we've got 7 beautiful flash drives with really all of Alan's work except the books.
Did you
And
ever total up in your like the total amount over all of those, the total hours that is comprises that collection?
I
Because
did. I
it's vast,
did.
right?
It is
It's
vast, and I have it written down. I've got,
yeah,
the folder somewhere that gives me the total hours, but I
yeah.
think the total hours, it's thousands of hours.
Wow.
But I
Yeah.
don't I don't have the count. It's
So
thousands
much
of
data.
hours. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. I mean, because we're both kind of archivists and, like the good kind of hoarders, where it's like a good book, a good resource, a good picture book, an encyclopedia, whatever, like redundant copies of the same thing to be able to put
Hmm.
notes in them and everything. And it's like just from the standpoint of like completeness and archivalness,
Hmm.
it was fascinating. And
Yeah.
those are kind of like if someone gets them, the little flash drive is inside like the container that's sort of like a
CD case.
DVD case
Hmm.
or CD case. Yeah, so
Hmm.
it's really cool.
And this is Alan's dog Bobby that he used to take around Europe on his motorcycle. This um, what gave me the idea for the title of Flash Drive number 5, Love from Listeners, was that Dave Hammond drew this picture of Alan. And I now have it framed behind me. You can't see it, but he sent me the original, which I just love having. And we ended up using some other things. I think I'll switch it out. Now, we are talking about the cutting through books, but because Darick and Ula have been so instrumental in helping me with the other project, and we are already embarking on mystery project next, the next project. So I am going to just show you quickly love from listeners. So, how do I love thee? Let me count the ways. So, all of this is Darick and Ula's really good work here. So, the helping me with the fonts and coming up with things that unified it. But this, so I showed you the Dave Hammond sketch that gave me the inspiration. This was an idea. I'll claim this one, but I wanted to color coordinate each flash drive so that it matches the case that it comes in. So you can tell when you look at it color-wise, oh, that belongs in number 5. But all of this artwork, these were done by listeners. This was done by Dave Marshak in Canada. This is an Ula painting. This is someone that we lost contact with, and sadly, I don't remember his name. But I have the painting on the wall behind me, and I was looking at it the other day, and I hadn't really studied it in a long time. And it's a man and a woman sitting by the campfire. And I like to think it's me and Alan, even though she's a redhead, but still, I'm claiming it. And this was from the website. Someone stylized it. They took the image that was on the website, but they turned it into a really neat art piece. And I still have that too. So anyway, we won't stay on the flash drives except to say that they are beautiful, and they are beautiful, I think, in large part because of Darick and Ula.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Marissa.
Yeah, and that's like a box set. I mean, that is vast. That's
Yes.
quite a collection. And
Yep.
that after we started the book, that appeared, and we got help with that, and it looks really cool all together. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like you could both lose and find yourself in that collection for spend a lot of time in it. Yeah.
And just one other thing I'll say, since we are in a way, we're in selling mode, and we're also, I feel like, in celebrating Alan.
Yeah.
But he had the discs available for sale. I think they were the average price. There were a couple that varied, but the average price of 65 CDs was $40 each.
Wow.
And then there were some, a couple extra things in there, and the DVDs. And right away after, well, not, shortly after he passed away, I lowered the price of everything, the books, the discs. I just wanted people to be able to get them and have them, and also know that somebody was still there keeping things going. So I just cut the price in half. So all the discs are $20. But if you were to collect all of the discs at the price they are, which is half the price, it's nearly $2,000. And so I have quartered that by, they're 100 each if you get them one at a time, but 550. So everything that I have done, I've tried to make it beautiful, but also more affordable. So you get in this, thousands. Now I'll start talking about how it slices and dices too, if I'm not careful.
Yeah.
Shall we?
It's vast.
Shall we look at the book?
Yeah,
Yes,
so
let's do it.
you
Yeah.
went to Dallas to pick them up today,
I
right?
went to Dallas to pick them up. Let me show you some
Yeah.
photos first before we look at the
Yeah.
book. All right.
Now, did you bring all the books in? Are they all into the home, or
They are all in my
Yeah.
office.
you brought them all in?
I made a space for them.
Wow.
I actually made 2 spaces for them, and I thought that I would probably use it all. But as it turned out, and that's a good thing to say, is that these are not mass-produced books. So it's not a mass production. It's a small run because that's what I could afford, and I really couldn't even afford that. So it's a small run. And yes, I have them all in, and I have some of them unboxed so that so they'll be there for me, because I do have a few pre-orders, and I'll work on that. But all right, so let's start with,
422.
I drove up to Dallas, which it was about an hour there, and the printer took a picture of me in front of his printer. It's a family-run business called Hill Print Solutions in Dallas, and they're by the fairgrounds. It's kind of an industrial area. The printer took a picture of me. This is not my Volvo, but I'm in front of yeah. So yes, I was very happy. He said, "Do you want me to go in and get?" I said, "Can you? I want a picture in front of the your business. And he said, well, you want me to go inside and get a book? I said, yes, that'd be great. So he went in. This Hill Print Solutions is a family run. I think they're in their third generation, so they've been on the go for a long time, and they're very nice. I met Jolene, the mother, and Michael, the son, and it's actually a pretty big business. I was, I hadn't been up there before, and I hadn't met them, only talked to them on the phone. So that's me proudly holding up the book at the printer earlier this afternoon.
Look how bright it is, how
Yeah,
bright the book is.
it's funny with the
Well,
car and
yeah.
the wall and the sky are also gray, that the color and the grass really pop
Pops,
out of the
yeah.
picture. It's like a
Well, I have to tell you too,
Yeah.
that I did one of those things. You know how you edit the photo and it'll say, "Do you want to enhance that? You want to make
Oh,
it
you enhanced
dynamic?"
it.
it bumped it
Okay.
I
up.
made it dynamic.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Well,
it
it
really,
worked.
yeah, it
Yeah.
made the book pop. So
Yeah.
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 It had
So
saturation to adjust,
yeah.
unlike that wall. Yeah.
So then okay, I'm gonna go and find our next image to share here. And I'm just gonna show you a couple in the back. I hope this is the back seat of my car. Yeah, there's the back seat of my car, and I'll show you that one. So we loaded them up, and my few in the trunk and a few in the back seat. And can we see that now?
That's always fun when you got
Yeah,
the test image on the outer box and you got
yeah. And I had an idea. Here's when I opened up a box to put out on the desk and, the little counter space where I put things together. I carefully took a razor blade and cut off the outer image. And I said to myself, these will make great postcards.
yeah.
And so I cut the first one off and I said, the very first postcard is going to Prince, my listener Prince. So I've and I'll have a few of these postcards on the box. So, but I thought it was kind of cool.
Cool.
So let's see, what else can I show you from my adventure here? All right, that's another one in the car. We don't need to see that. Let's see, what is this? This is the box. Okay, here's the box. The box has made it to my countertop where I assemble things. There it is. Isn't that pretty?
Nice.
Yes.
Well, yeah, we're looking forward to the final. We have our proof copy from before,
Yes.
which is what I reread, since we've sent the file a few weeks ago. And there were some other last minute alterations, of course, but you sent us this proof copy, so I reread that and tested it out as a book, although it's not exactly the same, of course, as the final one will be. So that was cool.
That is cool. Well, we'll
Well,
talk.
I greatly enjoyed the actual book format, and is separate from being connected to it, like the actual um, the actual pleasure of just reading straight through.
Yeah.
Uh, it's very portable. It's very
It's smooth, right?
it's smooth, but it's matte, and like the paper texture and the things that the decisions that we all made along the way.
Well, let's talk
They add a
about
lot, they add
that for a minute.
a
Let's
lot
talk
of
about the
tactile value to the experience of reading, which is great.
let's talk about that for a minute because now you can see the spine, you can see what the front looks like. So we'll tell you kind of how we got there. Now, I will show you some of the pictures of the progression. Okay. Here's how we started on designing the book. Darick had some ideas, and this is one of them.
Yeah, these are from
And
like what? These would be like from 2021 or something.
oh well,
The first
20
wave, as soon as we decided to
2022, I think is when
2022. So
when you started 2022.
So
So,
a while
um,
ago already. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So we're looking at, can you see that? Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So this is an idea, and I all of your ideas were really interesting. They really were. And they were different. And you gave me lots of different things. And one of the great things about working with Darick and Ula is Ula's very intuitive. And I can almost just say, please figure out what I want. And, and Darick is very he presents a lot of different ideas and then he extracts things from you. So Darick will say, now this font makes me think of mechanics, and he'll kind of walk me through it, and then he'll say, what would be really great is if you would look a lot of different books and see what you like and what strikes you, and what you want, what you're going for. And so we did that for months, and that actually turned into years, although there were a lot of things going on in between, including you moved, you left Seattle, you went to Aberdeen, and that all happened because Alan's, Ula said, should we leave the city? And Alan said, yes, right, as soon as you can. And so they moved to a town with a Scottish name called Aberdeen, which is in Washington, but not near Seattle, really. And then
Like
they had,
yours.
yeah, they added another baby to, so now they have three children. So all of this was going on. So it wasn't like it was years of constant back and forth, but kind of fits and starts. And but each time, Darick was always good about with the covers, just find things that you like and what do you think about this and how does this grab you? And this one that I'm about to show you.
Yeah, it's the like as a design challenge or whatever, like the inside of the book is so full of things that we knew from the get-go were like translating those into just like a republishable form. The work is all cut out for you to take all those things and translate them. So the cover was sort of like a wraparound thing that's like this is another edition of that, and it's wide open. What the cover is it illustrating the fact that it's the book? Is it illustrating the contents of the book? Is it illustrating that it's his book? Like what was the premise of the book and who was the audience to see the book cover, where the writing should be, how bold it should, all those things were just to get the ball rolling. And the final form takes a much different um, turn, and it's really interesting that how that's a separate thing from the inside of the book.
Hmm. Hmm.
But the thing you're talking about my like, I think that's another reason why I really enjoy his book. His books, his writing is very different from his speaking style in the sense that it appeals to me because it is so dense and it's so maximal. There's so much. He's not a minimalist. It's not, he doesn't overstate things or go on and on and on. It's very um, tight, but there's so much stuff that appeals to my um, design sense or whatever of like more is more. And there's
Hmm.
so much inside that's what those original covers like. It could be this, it could be this, it could be this. It was much more um, wide open.
Do you
Yeah.
see that now? Okay.
So that's
Yeah.
much more institutional, very quiet. The kind of like the shapes are kind of to suggest some of the like the honeycomb bee imagery or something, but
Hmm.
but the technocratic like just a very mild institutional flavor indicating, really quietly indicating what inside is explicit in the text, but it was very, very subdued on purpose in that like that.
And there's some elements here, though, too, even in the font, the cutting through, it actually looks like, these things can cut. It's
Yeah,
cutting, so there were all these little details
yeah.
that
And they
were, yeah.
that
Well,
font also to me, I was like, it looks similar to the one you like that we landed on of being a vintage older font against that sort of technological blue and that sort of institutional thing, so that you have that
Hmm.
tension between the old and the new, or whatever, which so much of it is about time and history. It's a book about history.
So as we, kept talking about the cover, I was having a conversation, I think it was with Brian, and Brian, said we talked about the cover of a couple of books that he'd seen that were very distinctive and kind of really almost like art book looking.
Mhm.
And we talked about, what is a memorable cover, and he brought up Bill Cooper's Behold a Pale Horse, which it can't be that, but something really distinctive. And so that's the conversation we were having. Now, at this point, we weren't saying we were going to leave the cutting through off the front, but I had it in my mind now. I had it in my mind, oh, it needs to be something iconic, something that really grabs you and it's bold. And so this is St. George slaying the dragon. There's the dragon. There's St. George with a halo, the cross. So it's cool. And there was a lot that I liked about this. It was bold. You see there, you've got some texture here. So it really feels like you can see and feel the fiber of the paper.
Implied, tactile.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So I liked that, and that was something I said, oh, that's cool. I really like that. But of course, we can't do St. George and the Dragon. But while I was discussing it, I mentioned this to Alan's friend Steve, who's from Scotland, now lives in Ohio, and used to talk to Alan regularly on the phone. And I talk to him and keep up with him. And I said, well, I'm trying to come up with an iconic cover here. And so he designed something which I thought was pretty cool. By the time we got there, to the conversation with Steve, I had it in my head that I wanted some plaid worked in there, got it?
Yeah.
Isn't that great? So he said, so Alan doesn't slay the dragon, but he's not at all bothered by it, which I loved that. And he's hiking in the Highlands because I said to Steve, I see Alan. When I think of Alan either on his motorcycle in the Highlands. I was never there with him, but that's what I see in my mind's eye. Or he's hiking, and there's some plaid in there somewhere. There's his tartan color. And so Steve had some, ideas that he put down. He took the head, gave us a hiker, and I thought that was pretty cool. This is ancient Watt. This is one of well, we'll talk about the tartans later. This is Black Watch, which is a different tartan, but it's a cool one. And Alan actually has a kilt in Black Watch. So Black Watch is the tartan that's associated with the military and, military parades. They always wear Black Watch. So we're getting there. Now I've got it in my mind's eye that Alan is in the Highlands, and so Darick and Ula and I are talking about this. He's in the Highlands. He's not on a motorcycle because somehow that just there's something there that doesn't feel right. But he's hiking in the Highlands. And then Darick started coming back with just the best ideas. They were just wonderful ideas. And it just kept growing and morphing. I'm going to show one other element that struck me, a cover that I found. If I can get to that. When I was before we had gotten to the Highlands, I found this one. And you'll a lot of you will think, well, you're just really got Alan in a halo, and it wasn't that. It just it just came up. There's something about the repetition of see the halo, the faces are here of the monks, but they recede. The halo stays on, and there's a pattern that almost, well, Darick said Darick said it becomes like a fish scale.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And that's a contemporary work, or is that an old work?
I don't know
Yeah, this
I
one, the
don't know that.
provenance of this, we don't know. It looks contemporary to me.
Hmm.
It's really clever. Like it's really interesting. The idea to do it is like, oh, it's a there's so many images of saints and things with halos, but then this is like completely turns that on its head a little bit.
Hmm.
But it's arresting. It's really great.
So that's neat. So once we settled on the Highlands, and we've got Alan is going to be hiking in the Highlands. Then Darick said, I can use this element. That can become, that idea can become the stones that he's walking on. So and that indeed is what it became. So I'll show you a close-up. I mean, we've looked at the book, but I'm going to find here one where we can see just the front from my unpacking them today. And now they're on my desk. So now we've got the plaid there. Now Alan is hiking in the Highlands, and you can see this beautiful work that Darick did to make us, to give us stars. And sure enough, that kind of halo, like the repetition of a pattern, becomes the stones. And Darick had the great idea to put, some words in there, a little bit of Latin looking stuff. The tartan is one of the tartans that's associated with the Buchanan clan, Clan Buchanan. I remember showing Alan some different elements. I'd found some, a Watt tartan, and I said, "Oh, there's your tartan," and he said, "No, I'm that, that's Watt. I'm Clan Buchanan," and so the name, your family name, your surname is not as important in your outfit, in your kit, as the clan that you're under. So Watt is under Clan Buchanan. And this particular tartan is one of the, because they have ancient, that's one thing that we saw with the image that Steve created. You've got ancient tartan, and then you've got the newer tartan, and so there are actually several that are associated with Buchanan, but I liked this, and I thought we all agreed that this one would fit really well with the Highlands. Anything you want to add to that,
Yeah,
Darick, to
just
the
I mean the marriage of the inspiration of the St. George image where it's like knocked out and you're looking through it to something else and you have a silhouette that is recognizable, but you're looking through it to this illuminated manuscript texture. Similarly, this, you're looking through it's him, but it's also obviously someone, seeking something or out in nature or whatever on a journey with the walking stick and everything, and you're looking through the silhouette into some of the more of the history of the actual person, the man, and then like the road that he's on is learning and scholarship and texts and history and then that it has that sort of gold illuminated manuscript aspect because that also struck us as chiming with the book because there's so many elements in the book that the task of interpreting them and putting them together and formatting them, making the text uniform all the way through, it has that feeling like you could keep going and keep going, and the it's trending in the direction of being an illuminated manuscript or an art object,
hmm
that it's so special. If you amplify like on a spectrum, if you amplify the rarity of a small run of this very unique book even more, it becomes even more something that you're embossing and embroidering and making, gold leafing and everything because it's rare,
hmm hmm
so it all like, and then you're like, no, I don't think it needs the big title on the front. Whoever's going to find this or wants it, they want it for what's inside. They don't need to be sold it from at an airport across the way.
Right.
And so then there's no title on the front, and that makes it very then it makes it very, very artistic, like very, um, if you just could imagine it sitting somewhere where someone doesn't know what it is, that's very, then it pulls you in. Like, what's this book? There's no title on it, you know? And so the image is allowed to be very strong. So that was an intro. That was fun. And I'm excited to see stacks of them next to each other that are identical. That's another whole level of weird pleasure to see something. Yeah, yeah, there's something uniquely strange about being part of producing anything that ends up being duplicated like that because you're like you feel just optically you feel like you've crossed over from consuming into producing, which seems incumbent on everyone, like
Mm-hmm.
produce, don't just consume.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really exciting and that's really fun to see. So you're going to send us all these in this picture, right? We'll get all like one, two, three, four. We'll get all. You'll send those out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Ship us those. We don't need those envelopes back there. You can just put them back in the Q34 and
Yeah.
tape it up.
Well, why don't we let's see. I want to talk about this element here of the karate kick. We can look at some of the things in the book, but let's look at the back cover first. Shall we look at the back cover?
Yes.
Okay. Do we see it?
There it is.
Okay. So this is from the website, and all of you who've been to the website a lot can see this. So talk about how you have him going two different, talk about how that came to you and this, because this is so beautiful. And I'm going to use the document camera in a minute to actually hold the book up so that you can see, because when we were talking about St. George and the Dragon, and I love that texture, that feeling of, cloth or linen or fiber, something there. We actually get that here in the gold backing. There's a very nice texture, and it's also part of the design itself that feels like texture. It becomes in a way three-dimensional when you're looking at it. It's very interesting. But talk about a little bit about coming up with
Yeah,
that
once
design.
the figure is there, then it's like, oh, it's like it started as two possibilities for the cover, but actually then it's like I think you were saying, why not have it so that it's, you're coming in on the front cover and then he's further away on the back cover and it just brackets the inside. And that ended up working really good. And then that gives the prominence to the quote. And in the back of you could see I sort of enjoyed a little more, maximal design there. There's more stuff going on. There's a lot more text on top of text on top of text, but it's sort of like you come in quieter and then you leave with all of this extra stuff to consider, which is what the quote kind of suggests.
Hmm. And the quote says, "In all ages, in all lands, there have been those who seek truth. This seeking is an individual search for something more than self and much more than the confines of this worldly system. It is the seeker who understands there is more than what meets the eye, who is not afraid and makes the choice to go into the unknown. The process of awaking has begun. The discovery is underway." And it says Alan Watt from A Course in Deprogramming. And people would often say when they'd look at the website, "What is a course of deprogramming? How can I get part in the course in deprogramming?" And Alan would just laugh, it's all here in the thousands of talks and everything
Yeah.
I'm doing. But um, let's just show a little bit more of the document cam on the books that I got from the printer, so they can see how that morphed into it. So I asked the printer, I said, I'd love to get a copy of a book. We want it to be 6 by 9. And I'd love to see what the book will look like, what the cover stock is, and do you see that?
Hmm.
Okay. And what the cover looks like and what the paper looks like inside. because bleed through, you don't want, the font from one side of the page to bleed through on the other. So it was a really good quality book. The stock is very nice. It's very thick and it's got a lot of weight. And the paper is quite nice. There's, you know, the bleed through is there, but it's there on every book. It's just, this is certainly tolerable. It doesn't interfere with your reading pleasure. So it looked good. So I said, that's great. Great. This is good. But then as the cover really started to take shape. So here we can see, I think, I don't know if I can get a little bit closer here, so that you can see some of that texture. You let me know if this is helping, or is that good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But right away you can see that it's not gloss like the other one is.
Right.
There's
Right.
not, it's much more sort
Matte.
of quiet and subtle. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And how that came to be is that when we were working with these colors and we saw how warm and rich and yet bright, I mean, it's hard, but there's a lot going on there. We said, oh, wait a minute, white. So look at this. So you've got this cover and then you open it up and you've got white. That just seems kind of stark. So I had noticed on the printer site that he offered something called warm white or cream. And I said, can you send us a book? And I sent everything to Darick and Ula, and he sent me a book of poems. And these poems are actually pretty good. I read about the man, and he lost his wife, and he's wrote a lot of. It was nice, and so I saw the quality, and that was just beautiful. And I hope that I'm getting it, but the
Yeah.
color,
It's such a subtle thing, but it's really
yeah,
a huge thing when you're.
yeah. And so everything, and then I thought, oh, that's right. That cream color with this book, this is right. Yeah. And I noticed that the paper, and Darick and Ula noticed it too, the paper just feels better. It feels richer and it's nicer. It's just nicer to hold and bend and turn and flip. So I said to the printer, that's beautiful. I think we'll go with the cream. And he said, well, it adds money.
Of course.
I'm like, and naturally it does. But the thing that I had noticed was how beautiful the cover was. And the cover didn't have the glare of the other, see? And this will start to show fingerprints. I mean, I'm like, oh, that's a much nicer looking book. I really like that. That's very nice. I like that. And he said, well, yeah, that cover, that matte finish costs more. I'm like, yeah, of course it does. Of course it does. But it was just so beautiful. And each step of the way, I would say, to Darick and Ula, and then Graham and Gabrielle and Faith got in, and Brian. I mean, I have these conversations with a few people, and each step of the way, I'd say, but it's Alan's books. I mean, it's priceless content. It's beautiful. There's nothing like it, and it should. So that's where we ended up. That is where we ended up.
And that's such a subtle thing, that matte and gloss distinction, but so many, there's many layers, several layers underneath the main image of partially different kinds of parchment paper that have been scanned that are laid on top of each other to create another texture. So it's a little noisier, but it's not too noisy, and to give it that paper kind of gold leaf texture. But if that were under something that was glare, that had the glare, that was obviously printed mechanically, you lose the association to those little details. And they're not conscious, they're not overt, but it's just that kind of quiet tone that allows you to sort of look over it, and it's all sort of, you just gestalt it. It's really nice. That's cool. Because then you get inside, and then it's Katie, bar the door, because there's so much information inside.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I I wouldn't mind talking about some of the work that you did. I mean, Ula did a phenomenal job of finding the exact same image that Alan used, but much, much better quality. And where it wasn't possible for her to do that, Darick got involved with taking pictures from the original, from the first edition, taking a photo, bringing out the resolution, making it clearer, making, the better contrast, all of this. So the work involved in this was just, amazing. And I didn't do much, Ula asked me early on if I could go through Alan's books and find a few different things. And I came up empty she only asked for a handful of them, and I came up empty. One of the ones that she asked for was the deacon. There's a deacon image. I thought I had it marked, but so she said, "Can you find what book that he used that deacon from an encyclopedia?" And so I went through all of the dictionaries and encyclopedias, or I went through a bunch of them before I found the one that this was in. But the trouble is that Alan had taken a razor blade to the dictionary and cut out the image, and obviously he had taped that on. So that just kind of shows you, Alan always said, oh, books, he wasn't like a collector of rare books or anything like that. To him, they were tools for gathering knowledge and learning. And so I'll give you that. But so because I couldn't supply that for Ula, what she had Darick do was go to the original, take a photograph of the image, and then make it sharper. And I'll let Darick tell you how that's done, but this is it in the new book. It's beautiful. I mean, it is actually better. It's the same image, you see.
The whole time she's project managing the sourcing of images and getting going, and pulling the texts in and starting to flow the text in and arrange things and because everything's moving around. There's all these parts
Mm-hmm.
and there's diagrams, and so it was all sort of bit by bit by bit, where it's like, I need this element and this is too small, and then we'd see, and then even late in the process with the proof, where some proof images appeared, and then when you were looking at them in hand, when you had this copy for the first time, things were like, well, that doesn't quite, it needs to be, the contrast needs to be punched up. All those things were all spinning plates
Mm-hmm.
at the same time over this process.
And then you
So
certain images.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
So yeah, so this is what Darick did here. He's taken the original and he's made it better. He's taken a picture of it and then he's made the resolution sharper. So this is an example of what Darick and Ula did throughout. I just want to show you again. This is, can we see that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is volume 1, and it looks very much like the original, but it's just quite beautiful. It's very clear. I'll show a couple of other things if I can get to them here. Showed you the deacon. This, I want you to see, those of you who have the first edition will understand how spectacular this is. It's just the clarity. I'll show you the original if I can find it quickly enough. But in the original, you can't see these details. You can't see that this is the mouth and things are coming out of the mouth. So there's just such an amazing, amazing clarity that's not there in the original.
It's
And
interesting because so much of the text is like it's brisk, it's moving quickly. He's making lots of assertions, but he's like it's slowing you down to study and understand certain things that you might pass over or you might not know they exist. And that the thing of being involved in reproducing it, um, working on, finding the image, working on it, putting it in, and like sizing it, everything getting moved around, and like with her flowing and all adjusting all the where the writing goes and all that. That was like a reader's experience while we were doing it too, where we were rereading all these parts and focusing our attention on all these elements as we're reconstructing them and stuff. And that was its own form of like study. That was really interesting. It was really cool because we would wait after something would happen, and then later we would say, and then we get into a big conversation of our own. It was really great.
well, yeah, that's, if people would ask Alan to sign the books, he'd often say people say that they see more with successive readings. This is the second volume. And I find that to be true, and I know from talking to you that you do too. So we can't take the time to go through each and every image, but I want what I want people to see is that there's such a faithfulness to the first edition, and yet in many ways elements are improved because the clarity is just so wonderful. It's just so great.
And real readers have a lot, like there's so much where we had to run something by you and you would talk to other people and everyone would sort of come to a consensus that you'd filter, and of some of those marks, underlines and the dimensions and everything of the little diacritical marks that are often custom, that he's peppering all through the thing to draw your attention to how things are spelled, how you can break up words to see the words that words are made out of. That whole sort of like arcane attempt to sort of direct your attention to the esoteric parts of something that you otherwise would have taken for granted in a standard academic book or a standard presentation. That was its own, that poses its own dilemma when you try to reproduce it, because you're like, does this on purpose or not? Should this be over? And there was all of that sort of like we're like little scribes trying to figure out this text. That was really cool. That was really
that was a huge part of the,
Yeah.
Where I really, other than the cover, where I really became involved. I just wanted to show you this quickly though. This is another example of the original. So Alan is talking, he's saying the Pope is seen here wearing a beehive type hat. On his shoulder is a sun symbol, and on his cuff is another sun symbol. And you can see it. You can see the sun symbol there, and you can see the one on his cuff, and you can see that he's got some people around him. But the clarity in the new volume is just, it really is night and day. You've got so much more clarity to actually see the beehive shaped hat. So
Quite amazing that these images were available 20 years later on the internet
yeah,
still.
it is amazing. It really is. And I have to plug here too that Ula wasn't just sourcing better quality images, which she did a fantastic job on, but she was also flowing the text around the images, and she was working with a program InDesign, but this really was a completely manual job because of the boxes for text and the boxes for image and how many images Alan used. And so it was a lot of manual work. So every time there was a change that came about because of correcting something or moving something or us debating what would look better, if we moved it just a little bit, well, that would entail Ula moving that text manually, and then it flows. In other words, it's a snowball or a ripple effect. One change went into the next change. And she did this over and over and over again. And she never complained. She never said, oh no, I have to, she just got in there and did it. And I'm just so impressed by this. When every time I think about how much the two of you have done, I'm just really blown away. I'm astonished that this labor of love, this total gift of your talents and your time and your energy it really does blow me away.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we're looking forward to like any subsequent like focus on the new edition that results in people having ideas about, because there's so much still to unpack from the book itself. It's so elusive, and it's so it's gesturing toward understanding things, but it's not as explicit or like systematized, or like another book where someone would get your attention and then try to drive you to a conclusion. It's not like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's right to be discussed, and for people to be like, oh, this reminds me of that. No, I think this means that. Oh, it does, and have like a larger study of it that's also a similarly group
Well,
study.
I think that's, I think that's what we're hoping to do with CTTM Book Club. Right now, we're working on Jung's The Undiscovered Self. And last year, it took us close to a year to cover Alan's Waiting for the Miracle. And I think it'll take us a large chunk of time once we get involved in the cutting through books. But it's very educational, because I knew the man and I understand how his mind worked, but I learned so much from other people because they've, maybe gotten into breaking down the language, or they've got they're into the images, and they've studied and they've seen things in the images. So it's amazing. But so besides a cover, where I got really involved was the proofreading. So Ula said to me, and I think it was early November. Was it early November?
What did I say?
Oh, well, I already told people you were like intuitive. She could just, you said, well, okay, here it is. And, I think it's ready for you to start looking at it. And I think that was November, and we hadn't settled on a cover at that point. And there were a lot of things to do. And you said, I'm not there yet. I'm still working on it, but you can take a look at it. So I just want to show you. Well, first of all, I'm going to see if I can get this stack picked up so that you can see it. These are my proof drafts.
Yeah,
That's
there you
wild.
go.
Yep. And I think
Great work.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is. I think that the proof drafts, I think I did at least one, maybe two that were that I just did electronically. In fact, I probably did a lot more than that, just scanning through, but I did two start to finish just electronically. So these are just the ones that I did. And at this point, then I brought others into it. There was
That's a
Faith and
tremendous help.
tremendous help. Faith and Graham and Gabrielle, and I'm fading. I'm fading.
Just got to focus.
And there were other people that took smaller passes at it, and then for whatever reason they weren't able to, something came up in their life. There was life happens. But the faithful few of us who were able to set aside everything and had the good fortune not to have anything come up that took us away from it would have been myself and Graham and Gabrielle and Faith. And then I'll get to one other person who helped tremendously on a last round. And Brian also did I'll just show you really quickly this bit here if I can find it. Okay, so Brian took on the job of photo captions. So, and that was a lot of work. There were, just different things that had to happen. So it really did end up being such a collaborative process. But this is the at one point, I think this was on the second pass. I had looked at the first round on 8.5 by 11, but on the second pass, I wanted to see what it would look like in 6 by 9. So I printed it out that way and then cut it. And this is just draft after draft after draft that we went through this process. And each time we went through it, and the interesting thing here is that I would see things that maybe Faith and Graham didn't catch, and Graham and Gabrielle would catch things that I didn't see. And I found that very fascinating, because proofreading is not easy. And you think you're being so careful, but it is very interesting that you see things that somebody else doesn't see and vice versa. So after going through that many drafts, and Graham and I would really get into the weeds. We would be the ones who, and then we would send our comments to Darick and Ula and say, we think this is what Alan, even though he does it, because Alan he didn't care about spelling. He'd say, you're under the spell of spelling. And part of not being controlled by language is understanding that. So we knew that there would be often times that he would use a different spelling, for instance, Kabbalah, and he'd spell it. And I think there are 3 different spellings of Kabbalah in the book, and we left that way. So we were not trying to standardize or uniform his language. We were not in any way trying to override Alan. We were trying to be very faithful. But there were there were more than a couple of instances where I would read something and I just knew that this wasn't intentional, it wasn't instructional, and it would be better if it was changed for the reader. So it was this being so careful to be faithful. And, Graham and I would have debates and discussions about things, and he'd discuss it with Gabrielle, and and then I'd send it to Darick and Ula and say, well, this is what we think. What do you think? And there was a lot of that, months of that between November and a few weeks ago.
And if someone hasn't read the book and they pursue it, once they see in a few pages, you'll see how the book itself kind of demands that scrutiny because it's also despite being about traditional things and ancient things and sort of seemingly cautious about a modern way of doing things, there's a lot of modernity in how it's presented and how sort of cavalier, because it's like not focused on all this stuff like we talked about, the just totally dispensing with any idea of like making citations and having an index as part of what he is presenting, because it's not that kind of thing. It's not downstream from all this bureaucratic priest class of like academic conventions of it. It's not like that. Mm-hmm. And so it's sort of like this, the text sort of trains you how to read the text as you're going, and it's open-ended because it doesn't, after I've just read it straight through, after we're all done, I'm still like, wow, I have way more questions than I had before that, So that's a really something that's actually very contemporary for people, aside from the topicality of what the book's about. The form of it is actually really, really generative and really interesting all of its own for people that are into that. It's really good. It's challenging.
It
So it's
is.
challenging to put it together and edit it, but it's challenging to use it and read it, you know.
I wanted to show here, if I can successfully do this again, I wanted to show some of the work that, so if Ula couldn't source something, or it wasn't sourceable because it was something that Alan had done or put together that, it wasn't available online, then she would go to Darick and say, what can you do something here? And I want to share this image here, and maybe you can talk about that one.
Yeah, that's like a translation of um his collage, which it like the page breaks into this and it's about the ideas in the text, but it sort of turns into one whole page of sort of a hieroglyphic presentation of what the book is already telling you in text. And it's very unusual, because it's not announced and it's not explicit like, you can see that there's all these associations and the words are arranged in a certain way. So they're intentional. And we worked with you to duplicate things that we thought, oh, this will increase the legibility of it. But then it's like, well, that's not exactly how it was because of a reason, possibly. So those kind of negotiations were all through the text and all through the image collation process, because there's information in them, but it's not explicit. And it's about mystery religions and things that people may or may not believe exist in the first place, but the certainty that he has that in the text that they do, his referencing of them and his pointing them out to instruct the reader, um, it's it's interesting because it also kind of initiates you into a way of thinking when you see the way he's breaking the words apart and everything. You're like, oh, what? You know there's signal in this presentation, but you have to decrypt it somehow. And that was a challenge for us to just to duplicate it, because we were like working with you. Do you think that's that? Does that have to be underlined or not? All of those things were considerations that a standard book publishing effort, even a picture book, wouldn't have all that communication.
Hmm.
It's almost like in computer terms, like the self-extracting file where you have like a zip or some file that's compressed and then you click it and then it opens itself up and then there's all the stuff inside it. There's sort of like that's happening with the way that the words and pictures are put together in the book. And so it's kind of like it has its own magic to it that's very singular, and there's not
Hmm.
a skeleton key to it that I know of. If anyone knows of a skeleton key, please let's talk. But it's
Well,
really exciting.
there was one thing that, Alan said, besides telling Jackie that he wasn't going to do a book that was just a standard history book. He wrote these and he said it repeatedly, I've written these in a non-linear fashion. And this is to deprogram you. It's to get you to think outside the box. It's to and a lot of people have said, we have had conversations about this, with each other, is that Alan wasn't teaching you what to think. He was teaching you how to think. And so that decrypting key, and I think that inclination to look for that decrypting key is always there. But for me, the key is the play, the breaking down the words, the playing with them is for you.
Yeah.
So therefore, you find the key by playing, by breaking it down. And one of the first things that you learn is, oh, it's all made up.
Yeah.
Like very clever priest class linguists, but it's all made up. And so when you can start to break it down, and Alan would also say, it's really great, I think in images, he said to me, I think in pictures, I think in images, it's really helpful if you do that because the language itself keeps you in a kind of cell. But that's one thing. So it's not a book. Now he would say, read it start to finish. Don't pick it up and read it in the middle. Don't read the third book first, read it start to finish and then start over and read it start to finish again. And so yeah, there is a lot going on there in
And
that way.
he was musical, so there's also that's in your mind as it's like the simultaneous presentation of the images and the words, but his own way of playing the language or the design is his own solution to that, and that invites you to compare it to your way of doing it and everything, and it makes it like a performative thing that's really that has a puzzling initiatory process built into it that the more you focus on it, the more it does that. It's really interesting.
This is another one that Alan had in the book that you've just done a beautiful job of creating the graphics. So this is all new. This is all Darick. And, the content is exactly the same, but, the image itself had to be created.
Yeah, those were fun for me because some of my work along the way is like making things that look institutional and like they carry some kind of formal authority that makes you think that they're like a chart or an infographic or something. But then
Mhm.
the contents are often similarly idiosyncratic or surreal or something, so that you do a double take where you're like, oh, this is a thing that's some official thing, but then it's got strangeness inside it. That's sort of a surrealistic trick that I've always gravitated towards. So this was mining my own habit of doing that for this purpose was fun, because she'd be
Mhm.
like, this should look better than it does, so that it looks more presentable, so that it fits with the other things, and everything's um, redesigned, but then that becomes its own sort of process too, which is like interrogating all the elements, where they are, what they mean, and not having certainty about that, but trying to be as faithful to it.
Mhm. So
That's interesting.
just beautiful. Now, as we got down to it and we're all, patting ourselves on the back and we think we've got all those typos. I got an email from Fiona when Graham and I said we've done it. Faith has another look at it. We've done it. We've got all the typos. Well, Fiona emailed and said, now Fiona's from Scotland, but she lives in Norway with her husband. I did a real history with him, Robert Smith Hald. And she said, I was an English teacher for many, many years, and I'd be happy to read it and look for typos. And she did a great job. And she found things that I didn't see, that Graham and Gabrielle didn't see, that Faith didn't see. So it's that has been the whole proofreading process. And I'm really grateful that I had all of that help because I wanted this to be as good as it could. And so I'm appreciative of that. And literally days, but right before we say, okay, we're ready to go, we got to get the proof ready and everything. And then Ula said, "Oh, did you get your ISBN number?" "Oh, no, and because I'm ready for that." And so Faith, helped me by researching how do you get it, what's involved in that. And so it's just been this massive, I call it love from listeners. So
Yeah, it's
I
definitely crowdsourced. It's cool.
it is. It really is
Yeah.
a crowdsourced project and a lot of love in it. Now, I think I'll read one thing here really quickly. Um, there's so many things I wanted to show, you forget to show, but there's the inside there cutting through Alan Watt. And oh, can we talk quickly about the karate kick motif? The fancy word motif this Darick came up with. And it was kind of one of the ideas at a certain point, we said we've got some extra space here on a page that what are we going to do about that space? And, and Darick said, well, we can use that karate kick. Do you see that well enough? I don't have to
Yeah.
dog. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just cleaning it up and making it so that it's can be made really small or really large, and
Hmm.
it's more graphic, more like a logo because it appears on the website and it has for a while. And on bookmarks and things you make, it's sort of like the logo of the websites. And so I was like, well, let's update that as well for the book, and then
Hmm.
that's on the spine, in absence of there being like a publishing company that's publishing it. It's in the little imprimatur logo part of the spine, everything, and that's really fun for me. I like that.
So it's a neat thing. So I wanted to just read something. I made a couple of things here that were, of course, not in the original. The first was the introduction and acknowledgments, and I'll just show you what that looks like. And that image of Alan is also something that Darick did. So that's the introduction and acknowledgments. And then at the very end of the book, there's a bio of Alan. And so those are some new elements there. But I wanted to read this little bit here. This book in its new form exists because Ula thought of creating it. Darick has shared Ula's enthusiasm for this project and participated in its completion every step of the way. Thank you does not begin to express my gratitude. Couldn't repay you, no way. I am so appreciative of Gabrielle and Graham and Faith, whose help has been tremendous. I would also like to thank my family as well as Brian and Takako, Diana, Fiona, Judy, Mike in Canada for your support in many ways and your friendship. Nick, Steve, and Michael Hill of Hill Print Solutions for his extra handholding. Ron and Steph, without your generosity, the last hurdle would have been quite steep. And I'll say that Ron and Steph um, underwrote the run of these books to a tremendous extent, and I think it would have been I wouldn't have it done yet without that financial help and getting it done. So another just super grateful for that. And finally, my love and thanks to Prince, my friend. I often hear you talking to me, and Sharon, and that's Prince's wife. There are many more friends, listeners, and readers who have cheered this project on. I thank you all. And it really is just a happy day, start to finish. I'm awfully tired, and I'm sure you are too.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we want to say or impart?
We're just really grateful to have been part of it to process to now, and looking forward
That
to
you
more things.
trusted
And
us
yeah,
with
it's
this.
really exciting.
What'd you say?
That you
Yeah.
trusted us with this.
Oh, you are wonderful. I have to say right now, if there's anyone listening or watching that has a project that needs design and artistic help, you cannot go wrong to work with
Very
Darick and
nice.
Ula.
Thank
Yep,
you. Thank you.
absolutely.
We should all
No.
maybe put a conference or something together and get all the people you mentioned and all the readers. We should all meet in San Antonio or something next year.
Oh, now
Have something where
that's
everyone
yeah.
have
Oh,
some consortium.
you
Be
brought up
good.
San Antonio. I've got to tell you a San Antonio story. First of all, I had to sign to pick up the books. And I think I had told Ula not long ago that there was a town in Texas that I'd never been to called Melissa.
Yeah.
And when I signed my name, the guy at the print shop said, "Oh, Melissa, that's one of my favorite. That may be my favorite town in Texas." And I said, "I've never been. It's not that far away." But he said, "Oh, I go all the time. It's great." But San Antonio, when my dad was, a musician, and he would go down for music publishing conventions that were held there every summer. And one year, when I was 11 years old, he took me. And I have an uncle who was a Texas artist. He was kind of known, he had a reputation in Texas. And he would set up his easel on the boardwalk, right where the river flowed through there. And my dad was at the hotel at the convention, and I was 11, and I was given a couple bucks, which went a long way in that day. And I was able, I know, I'm sure my uncle had an eye on me, but I felt like I was completely independent and left to do my own thing. And what I did with my money was I rented a paddle boat, and I paddled up and down the river and waved at people, and got in conversations with all kinds. These were the days
Yeah, that's
when
fun.
children could do that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I came home covered in mosquito bites and sunburned. And I remember my mother saying, "What did you didn't you didn't tell her to put sunscreen on? You didn't." Like, I had the time of my life in San Antonio. So I'd be happy to have a meet up there.
That'd be cool.
Or
It's
maybe we
probably
could
changed
meet
a
in
lot.
Melissa.
Yeah, maybe that's even better.
What's that?
Meeting in Melissa.
Just meet in
That's
Melissa,
Oh,
Texas.
well, I should do an
Live
explore. I
stream a
mean, yeah.
conference. That'd be good.
Yeah. Well, I think it's
And
fun.
I'll
I mean,
compare notes.
the other thing too, that we have a secret project that we have begun work on already. And this is the thing, with the flash drives, the cutting through books, the next secret, not yet announced project. But I just love that you're this involved in, years of this level. And when I think about Ula and doing the translation, it's years of involvement on things that I think matter.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
us too. Obviously.
Yeah.
We're doing it.
I mean, when she paints, it could be like, when she's in full painting mode, it could be like a 10 or 12 hour just standing painting. It
Shit.
could be just relentless, and she would listen. She'd be
Yeah, listen
listening,
to Alan.
listening to him do over and over some of them, and just in that state of mind where you're concentrating on something else. So it's also sort of a different way of interacting with information. It's like listening to music while you work. It's a different way of doing it, but it's like, it's hard to imagine how many. It has to be thousands of hundreds of hours of processing.
And I
that.
could still listen, again,
Yeah.
all over again,
Yeah.
as I'm sure you can too,
Yeah.
There's just so much.
Oh, I listened to him almost the entire trip up to Dallas, and all the way back.
Yeah.
I picked out the Redux that's going up on Sunday, and so
Yeah, that's a great feature. That's a great way to.
yeah.
Amazing body of work.
Yeah. So the utility of having the new edition is great, to imagine that there could be other efforts and other ideas and other influence, whether it's personal or artistic or similar research or whatever, that it will be part of that ongoing
Hmm.
awakening or discovery or conversation or whatever, however one wants to think about it. That's what really exciting to both of us.
Yeah.
So
Well, I thank you. Now
here's
you
some
have to
chatter out
get,
there.
you've got to
Yeah.
get up and go run the coffee shop, and I'm going to get up and clean this up and make sure it looks good, and then upload it. And then I got to take Aunt Betty to the doctor tomorrow. So it's a busy day, but
Yeah.
I'm still high. I'm still
Busy
flying
day,
high on the
yes.
fumes of
Yeah.
yeah. It's just, I honestly, when I think of the amount of time that we've, time and love, and to see it, it's almost unreal in a way, unpacking all these books. Just almost unreal.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Okay,
All right, very good. Well, thanks so much.
one last
It's a
peek
pleasure.
at the beautiful book. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exciting.
It is exciting. All right. Well, listen, I'll be talking to you regularly, and
Yeah.
everyone, I now have a book, and Darick is going to help me with the website and getting the information up, and we'll have that done, and it's here it is.
And then we
We
can
got
get
to
you,
go buy it.
we
Bye,
can,
people.
we'll put our
Yeah.
contact in the show notes or whatever, and you can, if anybody has any questions for us or anything.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Darick, and I'll say it now too, Darick and Ula Chamberlin, and it's Chamberlin is Lin, Chamber Lin. And
Yeah, we're all over the place. Yeah.
yeah, and they
Easy.
what is I mean, I know your coffee shop, but your the design business is
Last
Last
West.
West.
Yeah.
Last West Designs.
Yeah,
And
so
if you just go to lastwest.com, it'll be the store that's associated with our shop, but it also has our art, some art stuff on it, but it has contact and everything. So
shall we look at Last West right now?
no, you don't
No?
have to do
Okay,
that.
all right.
Just
Let's
look
go
at
to
the show.
bed. I want to go to
Yeah.
bed.
I'm just
I'm
looking at the
tired.
clock. I'm looking at the clock. I gotta.
The cats
I'm
are exhausted.
exhausted.
Like
Yeah.
this cat up here is like, come on.
Yeah, I know. All right,
That's
listen,
four.
I
It's
love
11.
you guys. I'm so excited
Love you,
about
Melissa.
this,
Thank
and
you.
yeah, everybody buy the book.
Buy the book.
Yes.
All
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 right,
right.
very
Have a
good.
good night.
Take it
right,
easy.
all
Thanks so
right,
much.
all right. Thank you.
I've got something that the world didn't give me, and the world cannot take it away. And I've got something that the world didn't give me, and the world cannot take it away. Well, it is love, sweet love, oh, sent to me from my Father up above.